From Notable Capital, this is Founder Real Talk, where we get real about the challenges that founders and startup executives face and how they've grown from tough experiences. Founder Real Talk is part of the Notable Capital family of podcasts, and you can access all our podcasts at notablecap.com. I'm your host, Glenn Solomon. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Welcome to this episode of Founder Real Talk, where we dive deep into the stories of startup founders who face challenges head on and emerge stronger than ever. I'm really excited. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with the CEO, Edgard Capdevielle, and the co-founder and chief product officer, Andrea Carcano, of Nozomi Networks. Nozomi is a pioneer in industrial cybersecurity. They're on the cutting edge of protecting mission-critical environments across industries with very special cyber physical system security. That's a Gartner term. They've done amazing work for a whole bunch of different customers, and we'll get into some of that today. But one fun one is the 2024 Olympics, where they secured the Seine, the river. And that this, in my mind, just showcases how crucial their solutions are to safeguarding large-scale operations, whether they be transportation systems, water systems, oil and gas, electrical and power, you name it, and Nozomi is there. We're going to dive deep into the challenges of scaling the company, which Edgard and Andrea have done very skillfully across many, many countries and continents, maintaining a remote global workforce long before it became mainstream, and how they're building their strategy for the talent shortage we see in the global cyber market. They've got very exciting momentum that they'll share. And here at Notable Capital, we are absolutely delighted to have been a Series A lead way back when. And it's amazing how far the company's come. So Edgard, Andrea, welcome to Founder Real Talk. It's so fun to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Glenn, for inviting us. It's a pleasure.
Andrea, maybe I'll start with you and I'll ask you to go back in the time machine. You did your PhD, as I recall, in cybersecurity and also offensive hacking, focused on industrial systems in Italy. Curious, why you chose this industry, what led you down this path. You started Nozomi shortly before I met you, along with your co-founder, Moreno Carullo, who is the third of the three amigos, in addition to the two of you. He's in Europe, and so it wasn't easy to get him as part of this podcast episode, but Moreno's obviously a very important player as well. How did you guys decide to start Nozomi? Maybe talk a little bit about the founding story.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said very well, Glenn, was passionate about cybersecurity since high school. That's where the passion started, and everything started as a little game, hacking my computer's friends. That was the initial motivation, long time ago. And I focused my study on cybersecurity. And one of the things that I always find attractive about cybersecurity was that at the end of the day, you need to apply a lot of lateral thinking. If you think about cybersecurity, another way to look at cybersecurity is, let's talk about a software. Like someone is giving you a software, is telling you how to use that software. And at the end of the day, someone that wants to attack that software is trying to use different ways that are not the standard one to try to do different things. So that lateral thinking component of cybersecurity is always something that I felt I was not bad at, and also I liked it. So that's why I was also always gravitating around cybersecurity. And as you said, I did a PhD on cyber, but in particular, I had the opportunity to collaborate with the European government for developing malware and virus attacking industrial control system. And at that time, for me, was interesting to apply what I knew about cyber to the day-by-day activities that you will see around the world. Some physicality around a lot of components that you can cyber attack. So that was the genesis. So I focused, as you said, for 4 years. I started on the offensive, then I moved on the defensive side. And that was, I learned a lot. And everything that I did was with the scope to try to increase the knowledge about the topic and try to find techniques to protect from those type of cyber attack. And that was my, let's say, my cyber studies that I did. And a key components, to the story of Nozomi is that after I finished my PhD, I was very curious to go and apply some of the skills that I learned, some of the things that I developed in the real world. So instead of staying on the academia, on the university, that sometimes it's an obvious path after a PhD, I decided to join a big oil and gas company. I travel a lot in Nigeria, Tunisia, Congo, Egypt, Iraq. So because the company had a lot of installations there, and that was the point where I start to think, if I had the prototype that I developed during my PhD, it would be easier to solve some of the problem that I see here, right, in the day by day. And that was, and I, at the beginning, I tried to convince my boss to develop something inside the company. So just to tell you, my motivation was not, I want to build my own company. My motivation was, I want to solve a real problem. And that was what I was motivated. Then I couldn't find anyone supporting me inside that big organization for obvious reason. And then I decided, together with Moreno to do that by myself.
Very cool. It's a great origin story because, as you say, it wasn't about starting a company. It was about recognizing there's a big problem here and someone needs to fix it. Um, so when we first met, you'd raised a bit of seed capital and you had like some early European installations. I don't know if I'd call them customers yet, maybe somewhere between customer and design partner working with you. You and Moreno made the courageous decision to team up with Edgard. Edgard, someone I'd known a while, he had a career in executive roles in cybersecurity and also in storage in Silicon Valley. In hindsight, when I think of it today, years later, you guys even refer to yourselves as the three amigos and are very brotherly in how you work with each other. But back then it was a courageous decision. And to be fair, you didn't make the decision on a whim. You guys spent a lot of time together over several months before you made the decision to team up. But curious, like what led to that decision? Any as you think about it now and putting yourself back in that mindset of the earlier, younger, less experienced Andrea. Any thoughts on that decision and how it's panned out?
Yeah. Yeah, that was another key milestone for the company, and now after a few years pass by, when I look it back and thinking about where the company was and thinking about myself advising as you say, the younger Andrea, or even now that I have the opportunity, to be advising some of startups that I met during my path. I would say two things, right? The first one is, as you mentioned, is never easy. So, and it was not easy. So, because there is something that you worked. In my case, was during my PhD. You feel that is your baby, and you put a lot of energy on that part. So there is part of you that irrationally feels that in the moment that you're not going to be anymore the CEO, you will lose, that paternity of what you created. And it's a feeling that even if you have smart people around you telling you that that is not the case, it's a feeling that it was there, right? So that's why it was not easy. But on the other side, that is the first thing. So on the other side, I think that the most important aspect is recognizing what do you have inside the team as your skills, and also inside the team, and what is needed for the company to be where it needed to be. And it's easy for me today to say that it was not possible to see Nozomi where it is today without Edgard. Period. It's easy to say. I feel very fortunate that I met him, not only because we are where we are as a company, but also because at the beginning was not emotionally easy for me, right? And Edgard was patient. Obviously we had arguments, but we understand each other, we support each other, and beside what we created today, there is a friendship that is between the three of us, as you mentioned. They make the company, the leadership of the company, stronger. And yeah, and even today we don't always agree, but we're working together, right? And there is a mutual respect of all the different skills. So looking back for other funders that they will find themselves in front of that question, should I do it or should I not do it? I think my advice is, obviously, we see startups that works also without doing that path, and also startups that work as Nozomi did. But my suggestion is try to find the right person, which seems to be easy and obvious, but it's important to spend time with the person. And skills on the other side are important, but the most important part is the personal. Can you ask yourself, can you work well with that person? Can you spend time with that person and enjoy it? Because it's a journey, right? It's an adventure, and it's important that you enjoy that path. So that will be, I would say, probably the main advice. There is many other around, but that's will be the main advice that I will give to the young Andrea.
You're still pretty young, but that's very strategic advice. Edgar, curious, like, let's flip the mirror around. How about from your side, like, when you go back and think about your decision to team up with Andrea and Moreno, obviously the partnership has been quite successful. I think when you joined, the company had minimal revenue, and as I mentioned, just a few partners. I think about 8 employees, sub 10 maybe, single digit employees. And today you're a company. You could fill in some of the blanks here, but like 300 ish employees, and 750-ish customers, approaching, triple digit millions of ARR. That's pretty incredible, right? The growth of this company under the three of you has been phenomenal. What do you attribute the strength of the partnership to, and your ability to execute the way you have?
Absolutely. Listen, I'll probably set it up as kind of the 3 reasons I joined the company. And Andrea, you and Andrea actually covered number 1 really well. Obviously, we had to have really good chemistry with Andrea Moreno. As you mentioned, we had this fraternal bond that, the 2 founders and myself are the 3 amigos. And that has been growing and evolving in a very strong way. In fact, since you introduced us, we're blaming you for it. We refer to you as patient zero. Not only were you the Series A lead, the person who introduced us, you're our lead director. So you're part of this, you share part of the blame here. So
proud
yes,
to be guilty.
the partnership has been fantastic, and I think that was the number 1 reason. I think the path of different startups that have this option of somebody external coming in is littered with, CEOs that were rejected, from a DNA perspective, or a CEO that had to address or remove one of the founders, and I didn't want that. We didn't want that. And one of the things I'm extremely proud of is, listen, not only have I grown up myself as a professional, but I feel that Andrea and Moreno are both top executives, direct reports to me at Nozomi Networks after 8 years, not because they're co-founders, but because they're the best people I can find to run their respective functions. And that's huge for me. That's probably one of the most things I'm proud of. The other 2 reasons are the TAM I thought was pretty interesting and fairly large. As you already said, we protect industrial control networks and IoT networks. If you think about it, there's a ton of IT networks, and half of them or 3/4 of them are not critical. They're just connecting stuff. And when you look at industrial control networks, 0%, none. No industrial control network is set up for fun or for some trivial reason. If you have an industrial control network, it's because it's the primary support of your means of production and your revenue. So the criticality is immense. And before I joined Nozomi Networks, I didn't know how large this market could be. And the number of industrial control networks and now IT networks out there is pretty gigantic. It's very hard to grasp. So the potential for this market was really, really large. And then I'll just very quickly, the third reason I joined Nozomi is actually a hidden. It's very hard to see if you're not in the inside. But it's this company's ability to produce a ton of software fast with super high quality. And it really has to do with the fundamental techniques and methodologies that we have in software development. Everybody says they run agile methodologies. Everybody say they can run extreme programming, and very few companies do. This is the first company that I've ever seen that is able to truly adhere to that level of quality and methodology and level of output.
Well, that's really cool. One of the things you've said, which I totally buy, I've just seen it over the years, is that the superpower of the company is actually the product velocity that you have. Personally, I attribute a lot of that to Moreno, who is the third of you 3 guys, and unfortunately not joining us on this call. But like, I think just the architecture from day one that he envisioned and built has allowed you to stay incredibly flexible and move very quickly as you've identified new opportunities in the vast customer set that you have.
I would complement that. Yes. So yes, having the foundation is critical, but the key to success, I would actually compliment Andrea as well. It's really having that feedback cycle between what the engineers produce and what the customer wants as tight as possible and rotating as fast as possible. And that is not just the foundation that Moreno and the methodology that Moreno provides, but the product role of really ingesting that customer feedback, injecting your vision, and filtering out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and delivering product. So I think it's both of them.
Super cool and super powerful.
One of the things, Glenn, just to add on this piece as thanks for what Edgar said, and also you said very well about some of the foundation that has been set that is not trivial. There is an analogy that I remember from the beginning. When I was thinking to build Nozomi and I was living the problem in the real world, I realized, right, I built a prototype all by myself. But one thing is building a prototype, they need to run once. Very different is building a product. They need to be sustainable, maintainable, and so on. And I was thinking, who is the best developer that I've ever met in my career? So during my PhD, I studied for more than 1 year in Netherlands. Then I've been in Germany. I met a lot of smart developers, but the answer was very easy. I met a lot of good developers. I also classified myself as a good developer, but Moreno, it's been always for me, really high class from that perspective. And the little story that I was going to share was that at the beginning, I remember that when we decided to build Nozomi, I was anxious to go and developing, and Moreno forced me to spend at least 2 months, maybe 6 weeks, to taking very carefully some decision about the architecture. And we did some spikes, so we were coding. But we did back and forth some spikes because he was keep telling me, you feel that you're losing time right now, but that time we're going to gain that time back in the future. So we need to make the right decision and we need to do some experiments. And we spent almost 2 months to decide what was the base of the architecture of the software. And today is still very strong, scalable, and give us the opportunity to evolve the software very quickly. So kudos to him.
Yeah, I think many of the companies that I've had the chance to work with, no matter how great they are, suffer from tech debt at some point. Like they really have to go backwards to go forwards. And I think those critical early moments for you may have felt like you were moving too slow, but boy, they've set you up for success. So that's a great lesson. Edgar, let me go back to you. Help flesh this out a little bit. Like for people listening, who are the industries that Nozomi serves, and you talked about the prevalence of industrial control networks, but what does that mean? Maybe go down a level and just talk about what some of those networks actually look like and which industries and how you guys help.
Yeah. We started focusing, as we said, on industrial control networks, and that's a very specific term. Those are the networks that support the automation of a physical process, whether it's refining oil, generating electricity, moving your bags in an airport, transporting people in some sort of metro or rail. They're just everywhere. Everywhere where there's a human, there is going to be an electrical substation delivering electricity, a water substation delivering water, a gas substation delivering gas or heat. And so they're just everywhere. Before I joined Nozomi, the world of OT, which is how the market refers to it, so OT for operational technology, or ICS for industrial control systems, was invisible to me. And of course, the red pill once you join Nozomi is that you can't stop seeing industrial control networks everywhere. It is in every elevator. It includes HVAC systems. And again, every time you have an automated process where the endpoints are not humans or machines that are behind humans, but actual automation endpoints is defined as an industrial control network, very specific characteristics. You tend to have an industrial control network for only one purpose, which is, again, supporting the physical process. While in IT networks, you have a ton of things going on at the same time. It's pretty chaotic. In an OT network, it's actually pretty deterministic. Another big difference is that OT networks have a lot of control from the industrial OEMs, which are, Schneider, Siemens, GE, Yokogawa, Honeywell, etc., Mitsubishi. And the requirement for cybersecurity and for analyzing that traffic is to be compatible, be able to parse the traffic and detect anomalies, etc. Our product really quickly includes sensors and then a management layer We have small sensors, big sensors, network sensors, endpoint sensors, wireless sensors, and it all gets aggregated in our management layer. It could be on premise, it could be in the cloud. And we have what I think is pretty much the most flexible deployment options. And the value proposition is basically twofold. The first one is visibility. For various legacy reasons, industrial control networks lack the visibility that IT networks have. And as this industrial transformation, digital transformation, or convergence between OT networks and the world of IT, the world of the CISO, as this convergence happens, CISOs are looking networks, seeing how different and quote unquote weird they are, and they don't have the same instrumentation. So the first thing they look for is visibility. We have this saying at Nozomi that you can't protect what you can't see, and that's more of an operational value proposition. And then the second value proposition, in a very hierarchical way, is the cybersecurity, where we add threat detection, vulnerability management, we incorporate the benefits of threat intelligence, and so forth. And this is where, for both of those, we have a ton of machine learning techniques to make sure that our asset discovery is accurate, as well as our threat detection is very accurate. The last thing I would say is the company, started very much in what I would say heavy industrials, mainly because of Andrea's insights and background. So oil and gas and electric utilities were our core initial verticals, while the product is fairly horizontal, not too different from a horizontality perspective to a Cisco router, which is, the Cisco router you sell to a bank is the same Cisco router you sell to a refinery. Maybe not like a Cisco router, but fairly horizontal. Mm-hmm. So it allowed us to move from vertical to vertical very quickly. We made the decision to establish some leadership and dominance on the heavy industrials. It is harsher from a commercial perspective. It is harsher from a technical perspective, so that once we had that leadership, we could expand easily into the other verticals. And we have done so today with, discrete manufacturing, pharma, automotive, mining, and now pretty much, on the other end of the spectrum, you have, kind of the more pure play IoT verticals like building management, airports, smart cities. And again, the super strong product that has been able to move from vertical to vertical. It's, kudos to the founders.
Very cool. So you guys, you mentioned all these various verticals that you're now serving. You have a lot of very high profile, very large customers. One that caught my eye that I thought was pretty cool was thinking about this 20 Paris Olympics that just happened in 2024 last summer. How did, Andrea, maybe I'll ask you, what can you say about that? I'm sure there are things you can't talk about, but how did that come about? What does it mean to secure critical infrastructure in such a high profile event?
Yeah. I think that is a great example, Glenn, to think about how our world is expanding and how the type of customers that they need in the Nozomi service and our technology are changing and evolving. An event, if you can think about it, an event like the Olympic Games, and that's not the only event that we protected. At the moment that the event happened, even standard digitalized technology that usually governates, a smart city or their day-by-day life, they become crucial, because when you move a huge amount of people in the same location, make sure that an attack is not happening inside those type of technology becomes extremely important. You can think about a stoplight. You can think about a system that is filtering water. Obviously, whatever you will do for attacking the infrastructure during an event like that can have consequences that are exponential compared to the consequence that you can have when you attack those type of system outside from an event like that. And obviously, we cannot share all the details about what we did and what we did there. But high level, it's protecting the surrounding and what was all the digital components that around a smart city is one of the capability that we have as a company.
You talked about the world for Nozomi is expanding. Why is industrial security become such a big thing? And maybe what would happen without a world without Nozomi, and if people weren't protecting these systems, what are the risks that you see?
Let me start super high level and then pass the baton here. I think there is a very, very large tectonic movement called digital transformation. Digital transformation is a one-way street. We can only go in one direction. We can only connect more. We can only automate more. We're automating everything, and we're largely incorporating more autonomous systems and including IoT. We're incorporating wireless. A lot more of our lives is digital. Industrial cybersecurity is where the digital world meets the physical world. I would argue is one of the most important parts where cybersecurity needs to be applied. And that just creates an incredible amount of momentum and an incredible opportunity for Nozomi Networks. In the past, these systems were not protected. And the primary reason is that in the past, most attacks, most incidents, most cybersecurity issues were associated with profiteering. How do I extract money? And where's the bank? Where's the currency? Where are the credentials or the identities that I can steal so that I can monetize them? And the world of energy, the world of electricity, the world of industrial control networks was not seen as profitable. Ransomware changed all of that. And the world post-ransomware basically monetizes people's availability. So if you care about the availability or the safety or anything that you care about now, I can monetize it via ransomware. So that has created a little bit of a perfect storm for industrial cybersecurity, and it created a lot of momentum for our products.
Andrea, you maybe talk what is ransomware and any other trends you see that are driving this incredible interest in industrial security.
Yeah, as Edgar said, there is part of what we do is keep monitoring the hacking community and see the evolution that the attackers are bringing. And obviously one of the point of realization, as Edgar said, that the value at the end of the day is where the core network of a company or an infrastructure is. It's not where the digital money are, but is where the core business of the company is. So if you produce tires or you run an hospital or a transportation, think about what is the core of my network, and that is where if an attacker make an attack, the company will pay, I don't want to say any amount, but it will pay, in this case, ransomware that is basically taking hostage, the system and basically, don't give to the company the possibility to operate on the day by day, but even other cyber attack. But the realization is there. That is now it's a common knowledge in the hacking community. If you want to make money, that is the place where you can easily make money, and that's obviously drove an increased amount of attacks. And to go back to the technology piece, I think one aspect to mention about what we do on top of what Edgar said is that one of the idea behind Nozomi and one of the reason why defending this type of infrastructure is different is that if you think about the cybersecurity in the classical way, it's basically on the digital world. When there is an attack, it's always consumed inside the digital world. The idea behind the Nozomi technology and in this type of environment is that yes, there is a digital component which is growing, as Edgar said, but the digital component is attached to something which is physical, something that behaves in a certain way because it's physical. And you can think about a stoplight. It becomes red and then becomes green, red and green. There is a behavior attached to that, and the consequence due to the behavior of that physical components. It can be a pump speed, it can be a temperature sensor. So the idea behind the Nozomi technology is if you're capable to understand what is the physicality behind this type of system and and understanding the behavior of that components, then I will have an advantage to understanding someone is trying to attack a system, is trying to basically create a behavior which is different to what it's supposed to be. And that is one of the key components behind our technology, and one of the reasons why a standard IT technology will never be successful without changing or modification, or will be partially successful in this type of world.
Yeah, it gives you guys a real barrier. There's a real barrier there, and I think is part of the reason why you do have some competition in the industrial security world, but we haven't seen the Palo Altos and CrowdStrikes of the world enter your space. It's just it's a bridge too far in my mind. Let's talk a little bit about you guys have built an incredibly global company. Like these are problems that are not limited to the U.S. or Europe. Like every continent and crazy number of countries that you serve. And yeah, you're a lot bigger than you were when we first invested, but you're still, you're not a 10,000 person company either. With 300-ish employees and having customers in 60 countries, that's got to be a challenge. So Edgard, let me ask you, like, how do you build a business that can go find and then support and bring to success customers all over the world like that?
Yeah. Well, listen, it had to do with the original requirements, right? So we were going to focus on OT networks, especially when we started, many, many years ago. If you think about it, one of the verticals that usually feeds a lot of young companies is the financial vertical. And it is very normal for a young startup company to start in the US because, financials is a very big vertical and it has a really large concentration in the US. But when you look at the markets that we were serving, which included oil and gas, electricity, mining, pharmaceuticals, etc., where are the operations, right? Oil and gas is where the oil is. Electricity is where the people are. Mining is where the resources are. And when you look at the world through the OT lens, the US is important, but it doesn't have the same concentration. And also, when the market was very early, not everybody was ready to buy. It was a very nascent market. So when the visionaries were ready, I think of a garden with some early blossoming. The blossoming could happen anywhere in the garden. So you had to be really ready to go and serve your customers wherever they were. The first customer that Andrea Moreno engaged was one of the largest, if not the largest, in the world, primarily based out of Europe, but with 600 locations around the world. The second one was one of the largest mines in the world, where the initial sale and initial deployment was done in Australia, but some mines are in Norway and in crazy places. Mongolia, I believe, is one. The third really large customer was one of the largest gas distribution networks in South America, so covering one of the largest countries in South America. So listen, now that we live in this post-COVID world, may not be as fantastic, but I do believe, and I feel, another great accomplishment of the company is that we kind of invented this post-COVID distributed work way before COVID. I feel we invented it, and I'm sure we didn't, but we had to design the company with this distributedness in mind, and we had to decide that it wasn't going to be a problem. So if you design it like that from the very beginning, then you're designed for this, and it's not a problem. And it involves many things, like, to use a cliche, think globally but act locally. There's a ton of local customs that you have to follow, obey. Hiring local talent is key. Obviously, it has to be a cultural fit and fit the company, but it has to be local talent that understand local practices. And then you have to hire people that have the ethics to do the work that needs to be done and the performance level that needs to be reached without supervision, without physical supervision. What do you think, Andrea? What else?
Andrea, tell us what Andrea, tell us what we've heard Edgard's view on how you guys built a global company. I'm curious, can you comment on how you've maintained an incredible culture, and how can you do that when you've got employees everywhere around the world?
Yeah, that is a key part, obviously, of the equation. There is no a silver bullet for maintaining the culture, but from the very beginning, as you know very well, for us, the culture is very, very important. And from the very beginning, we invested in small and little things inside the company for maintaining the culture. Is initiative that sometimes are initiative that are outside a normal meeting talking about business. It can be a book club, it can be an happy hour, but also making sure that you hire people that they believe it, right? They are basically, they have in the DNA the culture of the company in a certain sense, because you as a leader, one of the things that I learn as a founder is that as a leader, you can keep talking about a culture, showing and acting in a certain way, And obviously your impact when the company is three people, 4 people is very high. And more the company scale, more your impact become lower and lower. And the only way to maintain the culture is basically hiring and leveraging people that they will do the same things that you do. They lead as an example. They feel proud of the culture, and because they feel proud of that, they feel entitled to maintain the type of culture. And I will say that is one of the key ingredients. I don't know if we can say but between me and Edgard, and I would say in particular Edgard, but we keep interviewing every single person that is close to join the company. I give up on a few roles. I don't think Edgard they give up on any roles, but we're still investing a good amount of time in talking with the people that are close to join the company. One aspect is exactly the cultural aspect, and very last part that I want to add that it's basically saying what I shared at the beginning, right? All the international customer, all the installation that we have at the beginning. I want to compliment him on that, right? Right now we're keep hiring people, and we always ask the question: Do you have international experience? And for the right reason, the path of a standard company is I develop and conquer the market in the United States, and after that, I build that experience. So if you're a company at the same size of Nozomi, when you claim that you have international experience, your experience is it's much smaller compared to the experience that we build. And when you are a 100 people company, and you need to start to serve Australia, you need to start to serve APAC, you need to be very good operationally to create an engine that is not, adding a lot of overhead in the cost, right? Because you cannot think about it, but even the payroll, the payroll works differently in every single places. And at the beginning, it's very easy. I'm going to hire a firm there, and very quickly your cost they will blow up. So there is a lot of little details that in particular, in this case, Edgard, with the rest of the team, did very well in order to make sure that the company was able to scale efficient in an efficient way.
Very cool. Well, at least I know you're not paying employees in Bitcoin. At least I think you're not. So guys, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. We're getting towards the end of the episode, and we always end with some hot seat questions. I'll ask you both a few. Andrea, this I think right about now you're celebrating like 11 years as of since you founded the company, which is quite amazing. Pick a favorite memory you could share with us over these past 11 years.
Yeah, that's it. It's always hard to pick one. There is the most obvious one around the company events that the company did when we are all together. It's awesome, easy one to pick. But there is one episode that is I want to mention very quickly that I think it's one of my favorite, but because of the one of the cultural pillar behind the company, which is work as a team. We win and we lose together. There is I remember once that we invested 1 year in order to win an important customer outside from United States, and I remember we thought that was one of a secure deal, but last seconds we got a call from the customer and say that said it's a decision not only from us but from the partner, but I want to tell you that tomorrow you will discover that you're not going to be selected. And at that point, for any company, we get together as a team. It was the sales side, it was the marketing, it was me, Edgar Moreno, and it was easy to give up, and try to do a post-mortem analysis, but we didn't. We jumped on a flight, we flew there overnight. 6 a.m. we were there. And we met the partner, and the partner told us, listen, you are the favorite one, but you're missing this particular thing. And as soon as we learned it, we say, no, we have it. But the reality is that it was more an idea, right? But it was a team effort. We knew that the project was going to start after a few months, so we were absolutely able to deliver exactly what they were looking for at the time. But we basically crafted what they were looking for in a short amount of time, working together as a team. There was no title there. There was just Nozomi with the spirit to win. And that's I have more story like that, but that's one of my favorites because
That's
we're
awesome.
together, all the same, ready to win.
Anything to win and do it as a team. I love it. That's great. Thank you. Edgard, pick one thing you're super excited about for the future of Nozomi.
Well, Glenn, to use one of your phrases, we build Nozomi to go long. Nozomi is here to be a foundational company. Our current chapter is called Sales Efficiency. We're improving our sales efficiency to make the company more ready for a potential milestone. There could be an IPO, it could be a larger transaction. Listen, we're transforming our go-to-market as we speak to be more sales efficient. We're introducing new products. We're focusing on improving the wallet share that we have and the criticality that we represent from a vendor perspective towards our customers. And that's the current chapter. The next chapter is going to be a chapter of growth once we're able to prove to ourselves that sales efficiency is within reach. And, I believe the future is very bright for Nozomi Networks.
Awesome. Well, if you're not in the growth chapter right now, I'm scared to see what that looks like, because you guys are growing very fast, even though you're not in the growth chapter yet. Last question for you both. If Nozomi was a superhero, what would it be?
To me, I'll steal this one because I think this one's too easy. It would be Iron Man. So there are several things about the movie Iron Man, and specifically, number one would be the speed of how the Iron Man suits get developed and deployed, and new technology being incorporated all the time, how robust it is. Yes, Tony Stark is very smart, but Tony Stark could not do anything of what he does without Jarvis. And Jarvis represents the methodologies, the engineering, the closed loop cycle that we have between customers and engineering. And of course, the fun aspects of the movie is the success. Iron Man is very physical. It's a physical world, so it's like OT Networks. So to me, it's that one's just too easy. It's Iron Man.
Awesome.
Actually, inside the company, we have an automation built, which is as big as our software itself, and we named it Jarvis.
I love it. Well, guys, I really appreciate Edgard, Andrea, appreciate you both sharing a little bit of the Nozomi story with us today. It's been phenomenal to be part of your journey for the last several years, and I'm really looking forward to the next several. I love how you are so focused on building out the Jarvis system that helps you continue to scale and grow with your customers. And I know the market's continuing to expand, and your customers are very happy. So I too am very excited about your future, and really appreciate and look forward to maybe look forward to having another episode a couple of years down the line, toasting further success. So thanks again, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Founder Real Talk. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard, please rate and review us on your podcast app to help others find this podcast. If you have any questions you'd like to ask our guests, or founders you'd like to hear on this podcast, feel free to email us at frt@notablecap.com. Notable Capital is a global venture capital firm based in the U.S., focused on early to growth stage companies in business and consumer applications and cloud infrastructure, which includes AI, cybersecurity, data, DevOps, and more. The firm has offices in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and New York. We invest primarily in the US, Israel, Europe, and Latin America. Notable Capital's enterprise portfolio includes companies such as BitSight, Block, Dscope, Girata, HashiCorp, Monte Carlo, Neon, Nozomi Networks, Orca Security, Slack, Synac, Vercel, Zendesk, and many more. Learn more at notablecap.com or follow us on X and LinkedIn at Notable Capital.
This episode was produced by Sashi Productions, music produced by Gus Culpo. The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individuals only and do not reflect the views of their respective employers or affiliates. The information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be considered or deemed to be as investment advice in any way. Thanks again for tuning in.